Welcome to the Content Amplified podcast, brought to you by Masset. Our goal is to help you get more from your marketing content. Each episode is a 10 to 15 minute interview with industry experts that share amazing insights to help you squeeze as much juice from your content as you possibly can. Here's today's interview.
Welcome back to another episode of Content Amplified. Today I'm joined by Claire. Claire, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Claire, I'm excited for this subject. Today we're going to get really tactical and some really helpful advice that I think everyone can use right away. But before we do that, let's get to know you. Tell us about your career and what you love about content and marketing.
Totally. Yeah. So I have been in marketing in multiple different disciplines for almost 15 years, which I'm proud of. And it also pains me to say all at the same time. I started my career down in DC, where I was working for a multinational defense contractor. And I was chasing sometimes $1 billion contracts. And it was all about like just getting that message right, getting it out there at the highest level of the funnel so that you would get the decision made that you wanted to be made. Spent about 5 years there. In the past 10 years, I have been just totally obsessed and in love with B2B tech SaaS, as crazy as it is to be part of sometimes. I had no demand gen experience prior to that when I was, working with these military officials in a highly regulated industry that kind of comes with its own challenges. But tech has really just been all about demand gen and messaging, product launch for me. And I've held multiple different roles within my time in tech marketing. I did kind of like a career planning exercise a few years ago just to figure out like, all right, what do I want to do next? What do I like? And it all came down in all the different positions I've held, leadership roles that I've had. It was always all about the content and the message and the story. So that's when I decided to make that pivot into content marketing, and it's just lended itself really well. I've spent part of my career working on just these massive narratives with huge stakes, to then getting more into like the day-to-day transactional messaging that's needed to just move the needle on smaller decisions. And that's turned into a really good blend of skills to work in content marketing and just have content that works at the top of the funnel and consideration, and honestly all the way down to driving product adoption and expansion within current customers. So it's been a good ride.
I love it. And I like how you describe the role of content at every stage of the buyer's journey. I am such a big advocate for that. I think it's so impactful. And we've seen a trend, at least I have, where demand generation leaders have typically been the ones that get promoted to the VP and executive level positions in marketing. I think we're going to see a shift to content marketers taking those same positions because of how impactful content is to every single stage of that journey. And if you don't know how to manage that, it's going to be brutal. And so I think that there's going to be a fun shift that a lot of content marketers are going to be in the driver's seat. And I think that's going to be good.
I love that outlook, and it makes total sense. And you need to be best friends with your demand gen partner, because you need to be feeding them what they need to be successful, but then you understand the results of what you're producing if you're working hand in hand, and that is what's going to move you up that ladder. So I love that.
Yeah, I love that. Well, today we're going to talk about something that's fun: weaving the customer insights into content research and the creation process, and get really tactical, like very hands-on about here are the resources and opportunities to do it. But before we dive into that, why is it important, Claire, to be so close to the customer when it comes to creating content? And how do we really incorporate that into what we're building and creating as marketers?
Yeah, I think it's always been important to understand your target audience and really get in line with what they care about, what problems they need to solve. And to do that, you need to know your product so that you can make those connections. You need to know your industry so you can kind of understand the macro and micro trends that are impacting the things that they're worried about. But by and large, you need to understand them in order to produce something that they'll want to open, that they'll want to read, that will, bring your brand top of mind if and when they need somebody like you to help them. So for me, that's just when I don't know what to do, when I'm stuck somewhere, I just always go back to the customer, to my target audience to just center me. So it's important to know how to do that and to just remove any obstacles that are in the way of getting you there.
I love it. I love it. So let's dive into the tactical side. How can you actually spend time with the customer, learning from the customer, understanding the customer? A lot of people say that. I've been on a lot of, I've read a lot of articles and seen a lot of material that says, get to know your customer. It's kind of nebulous and vague. How do you actually get close to the customer? What can you actually do?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm with you. Like, let's get tactical. None of us need to hear like cool ideas that you don't like get any information on implementing. Like, no, I'm not here for
If you
that.
had $1 million budget, here's what you could do.
Right. Yeah. And all the time in the world, no deadlines. Like, it's
Yep.
fine. Yeah. No. So there's lots of ways. Of course, everybody goes to like in-person engagements, like let's shadow sales, let's do ride-alongs, which you should do that if you're newer to your industry, to your company, or just working on something new. When you can, you should absolutely do that. But I have found that with the volume of content that we're typically producing, even when you're being intentional and like trying not to just produce to produce, I don't know any content marketer that's like, yeah, no, I'm good. I've covered everything I need to cover. Like there's always more that you feel like you want to do. So a way that I have been able to stay close to the customer and get really, really deep in understanding the highest, but even the most like specific angles that I want to understand is through technology. Um, there's lots of different ways that you can use technology to understand your customer. And I have tried many over the years, but what I would say is first, look in your tech stack within your company. If you're working for a brand, like that's the first place that I would go. Make sure that you know what is in your sales and technology and marketing tech stack and get to know those tools because they may have features that can help you get close to the customer. And I'll give you a few examples. I'm in Gong like every day, multiple times a day. Chorus is another tool. I think they're called like revenue intelligence platforms. They're really meant for sales coaching, recording calls, but they have the use case for product and for marketers, and that you can go in, type in a topic, a keyword, whatever, and it will bring up every single call depending on what state your customers are in. Sometimes you can't share both sides of a conversation that's recorded, but if you're working in states where that's allowed, which most of them do allow it, you'll be able to listen to everything that either your sales reps or your team within your company are saying about a given topic, or more importantly, what the customers or prospects are saying about it. And these tools have gotten much better over the years. I started using them in 2020 when I was working for an HR company and like trying to make sure that we were talking about vaccines and stuff the right way. And it was like,
Yep.
so that was more of like a compliance use case, and it was really hard, but it's gotten a lot better to where you can just type something in, you can look at a quick transcript, you can pinpoint right to a specific part of a call to see what the context is, what somebody's talking about. I find that if I'm looking up a topic, I can spend maybe 20, 30 minutes going through a couple of calls, sometimes more if I want to, but if I need to, I can do it in 20, 30 minutes and just get a good sense of like, what's the context, what's the emotion, what's the problem, and what are the words that these people are using to talk about it for like any topic that's relevant to me. So that's the first and most effective tool that I would say. But then, the rest of them get kind of scrappy, which is also kind of fun.
Yeah.
I was writing about like why you should use an AI agent 24/7 as opposed to like only certain parts of the day. This was recently. And I was trying to, just kind of get some intelligence on it. I went to Slack and I went through all these different channels and I
Hmm.
just typed in that topic. And I was finding things like in our support channel, like, hey, somebody's, not wanting to turn this part of the tool on 24 hours a day. Like, can somebody walk me through like why we would want them to do that? Um, and it kind of showed like, oh, well, the customer had this objection. Here's the response. And you can kind of take just little bits of conversations. I've actually had a lot of success doing that. So those are like the main tools that I would say, from like a more like human listening authenticity standpoint. And then there's like the SEO side as well, which, I don't want to get like too like right for the robots, because there's a time and place for that, but that's
Yep.
not like the general vibe, right? When you're trying to build compelling content. So the other areas I've had success in is actually going into Zoom Info and 6sense. So those like prospecting and ABM tools, to just get a good sense of like actual punchy keywords that I can use for like an H1 or a title or a hook. And the reason that I like to use those better than just whatever my paid ads are being put towards, or whatever like Google keywords are using, is because I can actually build an audience that is reflective of my ICP, and I can figure out what they're specifically searching for. And I don't necessarily know that when I'm going into keyword search in Google. It's kind of just like here are the keywords that would make sense for your target audience to be
Yeah.
searching, but we don't actually know.
Yeah.
So those are really popular tools within a tech stack. So that's where I go, and it's
I
just,
love it.
it gives me that vote of confidence, and I think it moves the needle. There's others that I could talk about too if you're like in a low budget, no budget scenario, but you let me know if that's helpful at all.
I love that. I love that. And maybe we'll get to that. But I want to double click on one thing you said because I found it so fascinating. When you're looking, you talked about with this, the gong calls, you're looking for the emotion, it sounds like, of the customer when they're talking about something specific. You're looking for the terminology. What else are you looking for just to make sure it's a big emphasis point to get the value out of those insights from those calls? Like, what specifically do you care about? And how does that translate into your content?
Yeah, that's a great question. So if I were to sum it up in a couple words, it would be like the light bulb moment.
Mm,
Um, and it does go back to that emotion, right? But when we pitch a solution in a certain way, and I see that light bulb go off for the customer or the prospect, like that's what I want to run with. And sometimes I can find that if I'm searching for a specific topic.
mhm.
Sometimes I find that when I'm just listening to calls in general and I don't necessarily have as much of like a pointed agenda. But that's what I'm looking for, because like I work with an audience, I mean literally like everybody, but I work with an audience that has like zero free time, zero capacity. Like you got to be straight shooting if you want their attention. So for me, like I need to spend a ton of time on the hook. Everyone needs to spend a ton of time on the hook. So like that's the mode that I'm in. I'm in like building my hook mode when I'm in those tools.
I love that. I love that. That's so cool. How do you feel like, learning the customer voice, learning everything, how are you measuring and looking at your content to be like, did I nail it? Did I hit it right? What are, sometimes people have access to different amounts of data and all sorts of stuff, and it's different at different stages. And, like 6sense and those programs, they're really cool, but can be a little expensive sometimes. How do
Mhm.
you really kind of feel like, oh, cool, I nailed it on this content? How do you kind of judge that for yourself?
Yeah. It varies based on the format of content. So for something more long form, like a blog, I'm definitely going into Google Analytics, and the key metric that is like my holy grail is the engagement rate, which reflects the amount of time spent on the page. Like I put a blog out, put some paid behind it on LinkedIn. I did two, kind of in like close proximity to each other. And one, this is embarrassing, but like the engagement rate or the time on page was like, it was less than 10 seconds. And it was something that we were kind of like a topic we're pretty excited about. And then I did another one. I also felt really good about the quality, and the time on page was like 1:30, and I put paid behind both of them. So, I knew it wasn't one of those things where it's just like employees looking at it or
Yeah.
something crappy like that.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say. That's like my huge barometer for written. I'm still definitely trying to get a little bit more sophisticated with measuring video, but I would say it's the same. It's the same thing. It's, how much time are you spending within the video before you're abandoning it. To me, that's like more important than likes or comments on a video, because I don't know about you, but like we all independently search for topics, solutions,
Hmm.
whatever. We're all doing our research. Like, I may see something that I love and that will definitely influence me to buy something. Like, I'm not gonna. My mind not like it. I'm definitely not gonna comment on it. So while that stuff is good, like, to me, it's more about like actually seeing the behavior and how long can you captivate the audience, essentially.
I love that. I love it. Well, this has been a really good episode. I love the tactical advice. I love it. It's so applicable that people can go and use that today. And I absolutely love that. And as promised, these podcast episodes are short, and hopefully people got the insights they needed out of it today. And I loved it. Claire, if anyone wants to reach out and connect with you online, where can they find you?
Yeah, they can find me on LinkedIn, Claire Foster. Always happy to chat. Love connecting with my fellow content marketers. I'm also in the Slack channels within Content Marketing Institute. So if you're there, I'm there. But yeah, would love to hear from anybody who wants to chat more on this.
Love it. Love it. And again, Claire, thanks for the time and insights today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Content Amplified podcast. Please subscribe and leave us a review. And for additional ways to get more out of your content, visit our website at getmasset.com. That's getmasset.com. And tune in next time to the Content Amplified podcast.